gang, quit that gang shit, no lying shit. Get your ass bang.
Just want everybody to know that he was a good person. He wasn't involved in no foul stuff. He wasn't disliked. He was a humble dude, a good dude. He connected dots for people. He helped a lot of people.
A group of men once stood on an elderly couple's front lawn filming a diss track. They knew exactly whose house it was and who lived inside. And the man who owned that house, he was standing just behind the door, watching it happen. At the time, it looked like disrespect. But years later, those same men came back. This time, they weren't holding cameras. They opened fire instead. And before this video is over, you'll see how that moment on the front lawn turned into a double murder, and why years later, no final verdict has been reached. On June 25, 2024, two men followed him from a Queens club into Soho and shot him 3 times. Then they spent over 40 seconds stripping the jewelry from his body while he was on the ground. He left behind a 2-year-old daughter and a community that is still trying to make sense of it. But as gut-wrenching as that story is, it is not the one we are here to break down today. It is the context. Because what happened to Javier, a man killed not because of anything he did, but because of what he had and who he was connected to, is the same thread that runs through the story you're about to hear. Except in this one, it was not just one man who lost his life. It was an elderly couple in their own home, and the men who came to kill them had already been to that house before, years earlier, with a camera to make a diss track on the front lawn.
See me in the club, the same club y'all was at, talking about y'all made them turn baited out. Y'all did not do that when I was in there. Cause when y'all see me, nigga, I chop all you niggas off. Nigga, I'm big damn on my dad, bro, nigga.
What you just saw was filmed on the front lawn of a 62-year-old man named Tony Lewis and his 68-year-old wife, Layla, a retired couple living quietly in Mobile, Alabama. Tony's grandkids called him Firehead. The men rapping on their lawn knew exactly whose house that was because they grew up with the grandson. And years after they stood there making that video, they came back to that same address, except this time they did not bring a camera. On February 17, 2021, gunmen opened fire into the home. Tony was shot twice and killed. The bullets hit Layla's oxygen tanks. The tanks exploded and the house burned down around her. To understand what happened to Tony and Layla Lewis, you have to start with their grandson. His real name is Nashawn Jones, but Mobile, Alabama knows him as Honeycomb Brazy, a drill and trap rapper who built his following talking about real street life because he was genuinely living it.
This special ed shit. Retarded for real, I still get a crazy check. Nigga acting like he ice Nike, crack a nigga egg. That's the project, man, it's how I really rock. I put that shit on deck, O-J-Y, P-R-I-N-C-E, I want respect. They like OG banging GD, they like Razor banging Red. You better bang it when you see me, I'ma bang it all day. Man, he banging with his eyes closed. Man, that nigga scared, bang his head, leave his eyes closed. Gon' get you some rest, hey, then what happened? He thought he was DJ Funk.
He wasn't a manufactured persona. The streets he rapped about were the same ones he came up in, and the consequences of those streets eventually found the people he loved most. In 2016, Brazy was still a teenager running with a circle that included a man named Ladarius Moorer. They were friends at the time, the kind of close that only happens when you grow up in the same neighborhood, know the same people, and move through the same world. Then something went wrong between them, and Brazy killed Moorer in what a grand jury later ruled was self-defense. That ruling kept him out of prison, and legally it should have been the end of the matter. But in the streets of Mobile, a grand jury ruling does not close a debt. It just makes it personal. Because Ladarius Moorer was the nephew of Darren Southall, known in those streets as DD. And Darren Southall was not just another figure in the local scene. He was running a $24 million cocaine operation out of Mobile, Alabama, with trap houses, soldiers, and a reach that stretched across the Gulf Coast. When you kill the nephew of a man like that, even in self-defense, even with a grand jury backing you, you do not simply walk away and go back to normal. Prosecutors later alleged that Southall placed a bounty on Brazy, and from that point on, everyone connected to him became a potential target.
Black and white. I caught this case. This in black and white. You feel, nigga kicked the door in on me. And I had to handle my business. When I had got self-defense for it, I got self-defense for it. And you know, they what their war started about. They what they all really struck up about. Their war. They what they had a nigga's grandma and granddaddy dead, but all it. It started like, yeah. But, man, niggas, brothers still, I mean, like, I was for them, boy. We see each other, we, yeah. And, like, you know, like what it is. But, like, nigga living like that, bro.
He said it plainly. The door got kicked in, he defended himself, a grand jury agreed. But none of that was going to satisfy a man who had just lost his nephew and had the resources to do something about it. The clock had started, and Brazy knew it, which is why he moved carefully and stayed hard to reach. What he could not protect, though, was the home on Dr. Thomas Avenue where his grandparents were still living their quiet lives, completely removed from any of it. Now here's where the story gets darker before it gets deadly. The men you saw in that opening clip, the ones rapping on the grandparents' front lawn, were led by a rapper named Terrence Watkins, street name Wise Decap, and his associate Johnny B. The track was called Nat Bra, and it was a direct, deliberate diss aimed at Honeycomb Brazy. But making a diss track is one thing, where you choose to film it is something else entirely. The video was filmed directly in front of Tony and Layla Lewis's home, two elderly people who had nothing to do with any beef. And in the footage that has been circulating online since, you can see Tony Lewis himself peeking out of the front door, an old man looking out at a group of younger men standing on his property rapping about his grandson while the camera keeps rolling. Wise Decap and Brazy had grown up together. They ran in the same circles before the falling out, which means he already knew exactly where they lived. He just chose to show up there with a camera crew and make content out of it, while a 62-year-old man watched from behind his front door. The violence did not suddenly appear on February 17, 2021. It had been building for years, and the Lewis family had already been feeling it long before that night. Brazy's mother, Tanisha Jones, had her own home shot up multiple times. She did not stay silent about it. She went on camera with the local news and said exactly what was happening and why.
They came back.
They keep shooting up your home.
And I don't even live here because I had to leave because of that, but them fresh bullets.
Tanisha Jones believes her home was the target. She wasn't home when the shots were fired, but had been at the home yesterday and believes people saw her there.
They shot it up again. I can tell. I came here yesterday.
And those weren't there yesterday?
Not this glass, none of that.
A family 3 doors down woke when 2 bullets came into their home overnight. They declined to talk on camera. Jones says this isn't the first time her home's been shot. And how many times do you think your home has been shot at?
For sure, I know it's 3, but now I know it's 4 times.
Why do they keep targeting you?
I don't. Because they want my son, not Sean Jones, dead.
Her home had been shot at 4 times, and she had to stop living there because of it. That is not a random crime wave. That is a sustained, targeted campaign against one family. And on the other side of that campaign was Wise Decap, who was not being quiet about any of it either. While Tanisha Jones was giving interviews to the local news about her family being terrorized, Wise Decap was on social media laughing about it.
You tell him, boy. He dropped down, I'm gonna drop some too. Then I'm gonna take him out and go and drop some more. Cause they print them and give you that much money. And if they get mad at you, you have to take them chains off your neck, broke it, boy.
This is the same man who filmed the diss track on the grandparents' lawn, and the same one seen laughing on social media while Tanisha Jones was telling reporters she had to abandon her own home. And prosecutors would later allege that he was in the car on Dr. Thomas Avenue that night and one of the shooters. The escalation that everyone could see coming had somewhere to land, and it landed on 2 people in their 60s who just wanted to live quietly in the home they had shared for over 50 years. Brazy was hard to reach, so the decision that was made, according to prosecutors who would later argue that anyone in that house would have been a target, was to go to the one address they already knew, the one they had already been to before. On the night of February 17th, a car turned onto Dr. Thomas Avenue. The people inside had purchased a vehicle in cash specifically for that night. Investigators would detail that in court. Prosecutors alleged that Terrence Watkins and Patrick Lewis were the ones who opened fire while Jamarcus Chambers drove. Darren Southall was not in the car that night, but the state argued that he had spent weeks encouraging and organizing the men who were, pushing them toward the moment that his drug empire's wiretaps would eventually capture in chilling real-time detail. Tony Lewis was struck by gunfire twice and killed. The bullets also hit the oxygen tanks that Layla Lewis depended on to breathe. Those tanks exploded. The fire spread fast through the house. Layla Lewis died from smoke inhalation and burns. A neighboring home was also damaged in the blaze. Mobile police initially treated the deaths as fire-related, the kind of terrible accident that can happen when oxygen tanks are involved. But autopsies told a different story.
We begin with breaking news this afternoon. The grandparents of a local rapper shot and killed, then their home set on fire. The grim details just revealed by emotional family members at the scene. WKRG News 5's Nicolette Schleisman is live near the home on Dr. Thomas Avenue. Nicolette?
You can see behind me there are still a lot of people here investigating, calling it gruesome. They've also identified the two as Leila and Tony Lewis and were the head of their families. And we've also learned that they are the grandparents of local rapper Honeycomb Brazy. Now, the family says that a neighbor saw a car pull up and shoot into their home, and the house then went up into flames. Witnesses tell us that they heard a boom and what sounded like a bunch of shots around the time of the fire. This all happened on Dr. Thomas Avenue around 6:30 last night. The home is destroyed, and the fire was so big that it damaged the home next door. Anyone with information to come forward. Police have not confirmed the identity of the victims involved and any details on what happened or if anyone has been arrested. Reporting live in North Mobile, Nicolette Schleisman, WKRG News 5.
Tony Lewis had been shot, and investigators say this was not an accident. Investigators described it as a planned attack on a 62-year-old man and his 68-year-old wife in the home they had lived in for decades by men who had already stood on their front lawn to make a point. After the initial investigation, the case went cold publicly. For nearly a full year, there were no arrests, no charges filed, and no public answers for the Lewis family. For almost a year, the case went nowhere until a separate federal investigation changed everything. According to investigators, wiretaps captured conversations linking the suspects. Inside Southall's operation was a man named Jamarcus Chambers, known online as Project Baby Juicehead. Chambers had stolen $9,000 from Southall, a debt that had nearly gotten him killed. When federal investigators closed in on the drug empire, Chambers decided to cooperate. Taking a 5-year plea deal, he gave investigators information that went far beyond his own drug charges, including detailed accounts of what happened on Dr. Thomas Avenue the night of February 17th. His cooperation gave local authorities the missing piece they needed to move on the murder case, and it filled in details that the wiretaps alone could not fully establish. What came next was something nobody expected. Chambers reached out to Honeycomb Brazy directly on Instagram, sending him a DM that Brazy then reposted publicly. It was part explanation, part confession, and part plea, the message of a man who had clearly been living with something heavy. Brazy's response was short and said everything it needed to say. He confirmed that his grandparents used to feed Chambers too, that this was someone who had sat at their table, been welcomed into their home, and knew exactly who Tony and Layla Lewis were as people. That knowledge didn't stop what happened, it just made it harder to look at. On February 18th, 2022, almost exactly 1 year after the murders, 4 men were charged with 2 counts of murder each, plus shooting into an occupied dwelling. Darren D.D. Jamarcus Southall, 43, the alleged mastermind who was already serving serving time on a federal drug conviction.
A possible break in a high-profile unsolved murder case.
Yeah, Lanise, an accused drug kingpin who briefly escaped jail yesterday, named as a person of interest in the murders of Tony and Layla Lewis. They're the grandparents of local rapper Honeycomb Brazy.
Now, our Shelby Myers is live at the Baldwin County Jail tonight. And Shelby, this person of interest is locked up there after sneaking out of the Clark County Jail last night.
Yeah, that's right, Lanise. And that's just part of the story. The big news tonight is that for the first time since Tony and Layla Lewis were murdered inside of their home months ago, detectives telling me they're taking a long, hard look at a guy named Darren Southall. He's here tonight on federal drug charges. But as the Mobile Chief of Staff James Barber tells me, his long rap sheet could be getting even longer.
Lord, I hope ain't nobody up in that house.
A February night of horror caught on camera. Innocent grandparents Tony and Layla Lewis found dead inside their burned out Happy Hills home. Mobile investigators say Tony was shot to death before his house was set on fire. Their murders said to be retaliation for some beef their grandson and local rapper Honeycomb Brazy had with a rival group. For 3 months, Fox News has continued to ask Mobile police for any leads in the unsolved case. And new tonight, Mobile's Chief of Staff James Barber with a big one. He tells me this man, Darren Southall, is a person of interest in the Lewis murders. A law enforcement source adding to that, telling me investigators believe it may have been a murder for hire. Southall is a dangerous man, according to Barber, and his rap sheet backs that up. He's been in and out of Mobile and Baldwin County jails since the 90s. He's currently accused by the feds of being head of a multi-million-dollar Gulf Coast drug ring that sold crack and powder cocaine, fentanyl, and other drugs. Last night, he escaped from the Clark County Jail for hours and was moved to the Baldwin County Correction Center when he was recaptured.
Terrence Sanchez Watkins, 25, known as Wise Decap, the man who had filmed the diss track on the grandparents' lawn years earlier and who prosecutors now allege had come back to finish what that visit implied. Jamarcus Devonta Chambers, 29, was the cooperating witness whose information had helped crack the case open, and Patrick Vashun Lewis, 21, is alleged to have been in the car and actively fired shots. The detail about Wise Decap is what stopped people, and for very good reason. The same man who stood on the grandparents' lawn with a camera while Tony Lewis peeked out the front door is the same man now charged with going back to that address and allegedly killing him.
Hi everyone, I'm Peter Albrecht.
And I'm Devin Walsh. We begin with breaking news tonight. Mobile police say they've made several arrests in connection to the couple found dead after a house fire in Happy Hills last year.
WKRG News 5's Nicolette Schleitzman pushing for answers today. Nicolette, this comes 1 year and 1 day after the crime took place.
Yeah, that's right. And 3 people are now in custody, each charged with 2 counts of murder and multiple counts of shooting into an occupied home.
All I heard was a boom. It sounded like a bunch of
Almost exactly a year after Tony and Layla Lewis were found dead in their home after this fire, Mobile police say they're thankful to bring their family some sort of closure.
It's just a beginning, but it's a good beginning.
Police have charged person of interest Darren Southall, Terrence Watkins, and Jamarcus Chambers, all with murder.
I think we've just done the easiest part. Even though it took us a year to get here, we've just done the easiest part. We put handcuffs. We're going to be putting handcuffs on them, and finally getting them before the courts to answer for the crimes that were committed.
A fire broke out at the Lewis's home on Dr. Thomas Avenue the evening of February 17th, 2021. Police confirmed Tony Lewis was shot multiple times. Family confirms the couple's grandson is local rapper Honeycomb Brazy, whose real name is Nashawn Jones. He posted to Instagram he was sorry his grandparents got, quote, caught up in his mess. Police aren't releasing details as to what happened, instead waiting for that to play out in court.
We spent some time talking with the families and let them know that the day has come. And so the idea that their patience and their perseverance has paid off.
When Southall was named a person of interest back in May, police confirmed they were looking into a connection between Southall and the rapper and were trying to confirm a previous beef between the two. Live in the studio, Nicolette Schleisman, WKRG News 5.
What makes the case stand out is this. 4 men were charged with a double murder backed by federal wiretap recordings, a cooperating witness, cell phone data placing suspects near the scene, a car purchased in cash specifically for the crime, and planning conversations that detectives called sickening in open court. And yet, as of April 2026, no murder trial verdict has been handed down for the deaths of Tony and Layla Lewis. Part of the reason is structural, the kind of delay that happens when federal and state cases run on different tracks. Darren Southall was already sentenced to 35 years federally for the drug operation before the state could bring him to trial on the murders. Chambers had taken a federal plea as a cooperating witness.
Watkins was separately serving a 10-year sentence on other charges. Grand jury proceedings ran through 2022 and 2023, producing new and disturbing details in open court. But a full murder trial verdict has not followed. The wheels are turning. They are just turning slowly while a family waits for a resolution that the legal system has yet to deliver. While the legal proceedings moved slowly on the outside, the defendant's time inside has not been quiet. In December 2025, one of the co-defendants was reportedly stabbed more than 50 times, according to local news reports. He survived. The attack became another disturbing development in a case already surrounded by violence. Patrick Lewis, one of the alleged shooters in the grandparents' case, was separately convicted in February 2025 of an entirely unrelated murder, the killing of Brian Maynard Jr. in 2021, and sentenced in May 2025 to life plus 30 years consecutive. That conviction and sentence came before the grandparents' murder trial had even reached a verdict, which tells you something about how much violence was orbiting this case from multiple directions.
It was very gruesome. No one deserved, not just because it was my family, but no one deserved to be treated like that. They had no remorse for human life at all.
By 2025, the city of Mobile had demolished what remained of the burned home on Dr. Thomas Avenue. The property owner was billed $2,200 for the cleanup. That number sits right next to the reality that 2 people died there, a couple who had been together for over 50 years, who raised grandchildren, who fed people who came through their door, including the very men who would eventually be charged with killing them. $2,200 was the city's accounting of what that home and those lives cost to clean up. No number captures what was actually lost. Brazy himself was not untouched by the courts during this period. On a separate federal gun charge unrelated to the murders, he was sentenced in February 2025 to 30 months in federal prison.
New charges against Mobile rapper Honeycomb Brazy.
You might remember his grandparents were murdered back in February.
WKRG News 5's Nicolette Schleisman sat down with Public Safety Director Lawrence Batiste to talk about his lengthy rap sheet. She's live here to tell us about this latest arrest.
Well, Devin, Peter, police say that the rapper, whose real name is Nashawn Jones, could face even more charges.
He doesn't have a problem posting some of his activities that he's involved in.
Jones was arrested on Sunday in Dothan on warrants to revoke his probation.
He's bragging about being in possession of firearms. He is basically, traveling maybe outside of the boundaries of what his probation will allow him to do, maybe not checking in with his probation officer in the manner which he should be doing.
He was arrested back in 2016 for gun charges. As part of his probation, he cannot be around drugs, guns, certain people, and habits. Court documents detail the violations, including his connection to a shooting. Video of that incident was posted to social media. This reportedly happened 5 days after Jones was released from prison. Court documents also detail another video posted to YouTube, which appears to show Jones holding at least one gun in February of this year.
His actions and his behavior, the things that occur when he's present, oftentimes associate indiscriminate shooting either at him or him shooting at other people indiscriminately, places our community at risk.
You may remember in February, his grandparents were found dead after a house fire in the Happy Hills neighborhood. Police say his grandfather had been shot multiple times. No word on how his grandmother was killed.
In court, he told the judge he wanted to do right going forward. He was released in late 2025 and has continued releasing music. He dropped a track filmed in front of the ruins of the grandparents' home called Letter to God that crossed 2 million views. It is the kind of song that only gets made after someone has sat with a loss long enough for it to stop being shock and start being grief, the kind that does not go away.
I'ma start the letter out by saying, God forgive me.
Tony and Layla Lewis were not part of the conflict. Their only connection to it was family. As of April 2026, the murder case is still pending, and the family is still waiting for an outcome. The house is gone, but the case is not over. What do you think? Did that moment on the front lawn change everything, or was this already headed somewhere deadly? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns like this, check out the next case on your screen.